Ask any rider why they ride, and you'll hear the same three words: freedom, adrenaline, escape. And sure, those are real, but they're not the real reason riding feels the way it does. Underneath all of that, something is happening inside the brain, something most riders have never heard of and most non-riders would never guess. And once you see what scientists actually found, you'll never think about a simple ride the same way again. This is why riding motorcycles rewires your brain. 5 ways it happens, backed by real research, not opinions, not marketing, actual studies on actual riders on actual roads. One of these involves brain scans taken mid-ride. Another one involves men who hadn't ridden in over a decade. Stick around for number 3 especially, because that one surprised even the researchers who ran it. Let's get into it. Number 1. Your brain gets better at spotting what matters. And scientists can actually watch it happen in real time. In 2019, a team from UCLA hooked up more than 50 riders to brain monitoring gear. Not in a lab, on real bikes on a real road in real traffic. They wanted to know what riding actually does to the brain, not just how it feels to the rider sitting on it. Here's the part almost nobody talks about. Most people only know this study for one number. Riding drops stress hormones by almost 30%. That's true, but that's not the interesting part. While people were riding, their brains reacted faster to sounds that mattered, like a horn or an engine coming up behind them, and got quieter around background noise that didn't matter at all, like ambient road hum. In plain terms, riding sharpens the brain spotlight. It gets better at noticing what's actually important and better at tuning out everything else around it. Think about that for a second. That's the opposite of what most people assume happens when you're flying down a highway at speed. You'd think the brain would feel overloaded, maybe even a little frazzled. Instead, it gets more efficient. That's not just calm, that's your brain getting sharper while it relaxes, at the exact same time, which almost never happens anywhere else in daily life. Number 2. Every time you lean into a turn, you're training a brain system tied to memory. This one surprises almost everyone. Your inner ear has a balance system. It tells your brain which way is up, how fast you're turning, and where your body is in space, all without you ever thinking about it. Every rider uses it constantly from the first stop sign to the last corner home. Here's the surprising part. That same balance system is wired straight into the parts of the brain used for memory and spatial thinking. The exact same regions doctors study closely when they check for early signs of memory decline as people get older. Nobody rides a motorcycle to protect their memory, but every single ride, your brain is firing up a network that keeps your sense of direction and memory sharp. Riders often say a long ride clears their head better than almost anything else they've tried, more than a walk, more than sitting quietly. Turns out there might be a real reason for that feeling, and it's not just in their heads. Well, technically it is, just not the way they meant it. Number 3. Riding can bring a rusty brain back to life, and fast. Researchers in Japan ran a simple experiment. They found middle-aged men who hadn't ridden a motorcycle in years, some of them over a decade. They split them into 2 groups. One group started riding daily again, just to get around town and commute to work like they used to. The other group changed nothing about their daily routine at all. 2 months later, the riding group crushed a memory test. Their scores on a basic number memory test jumped by more than 50%. Meanwhile, the group that didn't ride actually got slightly worse over the same 2 months, just from doing nothing different. Now here's what makes this different from any random brain exercise you've heard of before. It wasn't puzzles, it wasn't brain training apps, it was just riding to work and back. Nothing fancy about it. The researchers pointed to one specific area of the brain that lit up in the riders, the part tied to focus, memory, and reading the space around you. A part that barely gets used when you're driving a car, because a car simply doesn't ask that much of you. 2 months, daily rides, a 50% jump on a memory test. That's not a lucky coincidence. That's a brain waking back up after years of sitting idle in the background, almost like flipping a switch nobody knew was there. Take a second and think about that. Most people look at motorcycle riders and assume the brain part is an afterthought. They see the gear, hear the engine, and figure the whole thing is just about speed and thrill, nothing deeper going on underneath. But the research keeps pointing somewhere completely different. Every ride is quietly training the brain in ways almost nobody notices, including the riders themselves. And the next two benefits get even more specific than the first three. Number 4. Experienced riders don't just react faster, they literally look at the road differently than everyone else on it. Scientists tracked exactly where riders' eyes go while they ride, frame by frame, on real roads with a real camera on their helmet. What they found is that riders don't scan the road randomly at all. Experienced riders develop specific patterns. They check certain spots, at certain distances, in a certain order, almost like a routine built from thousands of hours in the saddle, without them ever writing it down or even realizing they're doing it. Here's the part that matters most. This isn't something you're born with. It's trainable. Newer riders can actually be taught to look at the road the way seasoned riders do, checking mirrors, checking exits, checking that pothole 2 seconds before it matters. Their hazard spotting improves almost immediately once they learn it, sometimes after just one training session. In other words, riding builds a skill most people never even think about, the ability to notice danger before it fully shows up. Not by having faster reflexes, by already knowing where to look before trouble even starts. That's not luck. That's not raw talent. That's practice quietly rewiring how your eyes and brain work together mile after mile after mile. Number 5, and this might be the biggest one of all, riding doesn't just lower stress, it changes the entire chemical balance inside your body. Remember that UCLA study from earlier? It measured way more than one stress hormone. It tracked several hormones at once, including one called DHEA. Think of DHEA as a hormone that protects your brain from the wear and tear that stress usually causes over time, almost like a shield against burnout. Here's the part most people miss completely. It wasn't just that the stress hormone went down. The balance between the stress hormone and the protective hormone actually shifted in the rider's favor, and it happened within the first 20 minutes of riding. At the same time, heart rate and adrenaline both went up, similar to what happens during a light workout at the gym, not a stressful event. That's a completely different thing than just feeling relaxed. That's your body treating the ride like healthy exercise, not like a threat, while actively protecting your brain the entire time you're out there on the road, mile after mile, corner after corner. Here's what's worth remembering. Riders have always described this feeling with the same handful of words: freedom, clarity, peace of mind. None of that is wrong. But those words are describing something much bigger happening underneath, something most riders never get to see for themselves. A brain that reacts faster to what actually matters, a balance system tied straight into memory, a mind that wakes back up after sitting still for years, eyes trained to catch danger before it happens, and a body treating the whole ride like exercise instead of a threat. That's 5 separate systems all working together every single time you throw a leg over a bike and pull out of the driveway. If you've been riding for years, you probably felt at least one of these 5 long before science caught up and explained it. Maybe riders never needed a study to feel this, but now we finally know exactly why they were right all along.